Welcome to the Human First Executive. I'm your trusted host, Rob Kalwarowsky, and we have an incredibly special guest today. Vera Anderson's with us. She is the founder of Global Elements Consulting and a leadership mindset consultant. Vera, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Rob?
Good. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to have some fun.
Absolutely.
So, Vera, for folks out there, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Where to begin, right? I'm originally from Russia, and my family immigrated to the U.S. when I was 12. But along that road, I've also had some international adventures. My grandfather was a diplomat, and I've got to experience quite an unusual situation when, at the age of 6, I was transported from snowy Moscow in the middle of the winter into a magical world that's called Indonesia, where it's tropics. There's beautiful flowers, there's animals and birds and butterflies the size of your head. I've never seen anything like that. And the most peculiar thing was I was a white, snow white, pale, blonde-haired, gray-eyed kid, and I am dropped in this world with people with colorful skin, dark skin. And so I stood out to them. And it was a really bizarre experience. It was kind of like Alice in Wonderland, where nothing is as it seems. And I think that's been a thread throughout my life. And that has also created this insatiable curiosity to see more of the world. And the more I see, the more I experience, the more people I meet, the more I realize how little I have seen. So that's been quite an adventure for this last 4 decades on this planet. And I just find myself fascinated with the whole idea of what we create in the physical world, our goals, our pursuits, versus the experience that we're living in our inner world, in our minds, in our bodies, and our hearts. And initially, as all of us, I think, I was in the pursuit of the physical goals, the success as it's defined by financial income, by your title, by your position. I was a partner in a private equity firm by the age of 26. I was serving on the boards of international companies by the age of 30, and everything was unfolding very quickly. And I had a significant stake, equity stake in the business that I was a partner in, with a track of going IPO and potentially financially retiring in my early 30s. Unfortunately, as we all know, God was laughing at all of that. And that's when 2008, 2009 market crash happened. And instead of going IPO, we lost the entire company. We had an international conglomerate. And I had to start from scratch. I had to start over and rebuild and redefine what does a success look like? What does that mean? And unfortunately, also within 6 months of us losing the business, my business partner of 8 years committed suicide. And that gave me a pretty grim perspective on what happens if you equate your self-worth with your net worth, and how quickly that can get unraveled, and how quickly you feel like you are completely out of control and there's nothing you can do to change the direction of your life. So from that point, I had these very conflicting awarenesses, right? I still wanted to succeed, but I couldn't succeed in a way that was eating at my soul, if you will. So that had to be reworked and reimagined and redefined. And ultimately, I landed in coaching space, and particularly in the mindset consulting, because it's all about what do we have in our mind. You can have the most amazing business strategy, but if you're having resistance to it, if you're having self-doubt, if you have any kind of triggers that are coming out, historical, that might not even be related to anything that you're doing right now, you're not going to be able to execute at your best. And so being able to help my clients to overcome those obstacles, to be able to have that external perspective to guide them into what is aligned, what is the best use of their time, talents, and treasures, what is most authentic to them, and from there generating the income, from there generating the success and all of the material things. So that's been my journey, and I think it's an ongoing journey, as you know, being a coach. Every day I'm learning and every day I'm teaching.
It never ends. And that it's always a transition, right? And I think, I mean, that's why I ended up in this space as well, right? Now, I'd love to talk about that decoupling from the net worth is your self-worth. Like, what does that process look like for you?
It starts with step one, which is awareness, right? With anything else, if you're aware of a problem, you can then tackle it. But it's really going deeper than that. And I think the society's perspective has been that in order for you to be successful, you have to demonstrate certain financial acumen. You need to have certain level of wealth. You have to be able to buy whatever you want. You have to drive a certain car. You have to live in a certain zip code. That means you're successful. The reality is, if that's how you define success, nowhere in there is there a statement that you also get to be happy. And it's almost the inverse, right? The more money you have, the more challenges and complexities life brings. And if you're just striving to make the money, you think, oh, if I have 1 million, if I have 5 million, if I have 1 billion, all of my problems go away. The reality, it's not true, unfortunately. It was only that easy, right? So being able to understand that the human side of you, the inner side of you that needs connection, that needs a sense of purpose, that needs a sense of belonging, does not require enormous amounts of wealth. But that is the side of our growth up to a certain point that gets neglected. And what I find that with my clients and with some of the members that I lead in Tiger 21 community, there comes a point when you have an exit and when you effectively have arrived, financially speaking, right? And you realize that it's not fulfilling, that now you have this identity crisis. You don't know who you are without your title of a CEO, without your team, without your business, without this stature in the community of being important. And that's when a lot of people go into the inner work and they start looking for the answers within rather than the answers in the external world and validation from the external world. And the rest of us call it midlife crisis.
It's funny, right? And I always talk about this is like if there was only a way to get folks to do the work without the crises part, one, it would be easier, but two, it is it would create a lot less suffering, but nobody ever comes to this work when everything's going well.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something on your website about legacy. Like, how do you think about legacy in the work that you do?
It is, again, such an individual definition. Everybody defines legacy in their own way. My definition of legacy is to show up every day and be kind to someone, to support someone, and pass on that energy of hope and kindness and possibility. I'm not looking at it as, oh, I want my name on the building or I want to be remembered for thousands of years, because I understand that all of us are here for just a second. Even if we are remembered for a couple of decades or even centuries, it's still just a second. So really, the more present, the more giving, the more kind, the more patient, the more supportive you can be in every day and every moment. That's what, for me, defines a success and a legacy.
Vera, we connected through the reel,
Mm-hmm.
and a huge conversation in leadership is about showing authenticity and realness as part of that. How do you support your clients in getting over this common thing that we all experience where it's like we're supposed to show up in a certain way that we believe is right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
the strong, all-knowing leader that none of us are, but we were told or expected to be. Like, how do you get folks over that image that they think they're supposed to project?
Sure. Well, it all starts from within, right? How do you feel about yourself? How do you see yourself? And one of the things I always remind my clients is if you're judging somebody else, you're judging yourself. So to begin that authentic exploration and showing up authentically in the world, first you need to know who the heck you are. And be in alignment and be honest with yourself. Then you can show the true self. But so many of us myself included for the longest time, wanted to be something different and needed to be somebody different, that it makes it difficult to remember who you truly are. And that's where that inner work helps a lot, because in my private equity life, I was very masculine. I was wearing black suits. I was one of the guys. I was drinking cognac and smoking cigars. And I needed to have this really assertive personality in order to be heard, understood, taken seriously. Or so that was my understanding, because I really didn't have any role models at that time. And I've carried that masculine energy and that way of showing up into my career and work down the road, until I realized that it wasn't actually helping me, it was hindering me. But again, you have to have that awareness of, is this an armor that I'm putting on, or is this me?
And you're mentioning it, right? It's now we're starting to turn inwards and listen to our experience inside.
Well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Right. And this is why, even as coaches have coaches, because we all have our conditioning, our programming, we all have our beliefs, our systems, our ways of protecting ourselves from getting hurt, which is all of these constructs that our mind creates, and we abide by them. And sometimes it takes an event, like you were saying, to shake you out of that, to realize you're not in the cage, you're not in the box, but of your own imagination. But sometimes it takes somebody else. It takes an internal person with a clear view and perspective and without any emotional attachment to witness you and observe you and to reflect back to you which you intuitively know, but haven't either verbalized or haven't brought it up to the surface level to become aware of it. So this is where I'd say this is where I shine. This is what I love doing, is witnessing my clients as they become more and more aware. And from that inner exploration, life transitions become a lot easier. They don't feel as isolating and lonely, but they feel very purposeful and very meaningful. And coming out of something like this, coming out of redefining your identity after you've built an amazing business and given it all you've got, and stepping back into the world knowing who you are without that business and without that title, is something that's quite empowering.
How do you guide folks to discover who they truly are?
One session at a time. I wish I could say it's a magic pill, and I do pride myself on identifying and self-experimenting and finding shortcuts, because my goal for the clients is to have that transitional experience as quickly as possible, but yet on their own time. And some people are ready and they're willing and they're able and they align very quickly. And some people just take some time. And either one is okay, right? There is no rush. There is no, it has to be done. There is no timeline. It's just a matter of, how do we get you to feel good about yourself, about your choices? How do we get you to that place of clarity and certainty and inner peace? Because from there, all of the decisions become quite easy and all of the clutter and the noise drops away and you can just be yourself, but the external pressures are still there. Right? The expectations from the world are still there. If you're running a family office, everybody's expecting you to have the answers. If you're running a company, everybody's looking up to you. If you're a father, mother, husband, wife, you have people who are dependent on you. And so you're taking on all of these external expectations in addition to whatever it is you've been conditioned and programmed to. And that becomes quite heavy. So when you reframe all of that from I'm being expected to, here's what I'm willing and able and would love to give, it becomes a very different process and experience of life and all of the quote unquote obligations.
Vera, you mentioned this insatiable curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
What is like, what are you diving into these days?
Mindset work. I've been studying the release technique and the Sedona method and have worked with people who have taken even those processes beyond what is being taught. And I'm a huge proponent of guided visualizations. It's kind of like whatever your mind can see, it will believe, and then you can create. My father was a sports psychologist, and this is back in Russia, and he worked with the Russian Olympic team. And I just remember listening to him talking to the athletes, and they had their eyes closed, and he would just be talking in this really calm voice and allowing them to see themselves hit the dive or get the perfect score or execute. And just kind of, he would repeat it over and over and over again. And then they would open up their eyes, get on the diving platform, and hit a perfect 10. And that, tangible, intangible connection, I was like, wow, that is real. So subconsciously, somewhere in the back of my mind, that's always been there. But as I've gotten into this coaching side of things, we've been exposed to a lot in the last decade. And there's been so much from metaphysical to quantum physics to your ceremonies and all kinds of spiritual practices. So I try what I feel would be beneficial for my clients. I use that on myself first, and then I integrate it into the practice again for the purpose of helping accelerate to the outcome. Because ultimately, that's all we want. We want to be free, and we want to be free today. We want to be happy, and we want it to be forever.
And we needed that yesterday.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of visualization work. I do it a lot with folks. But you're right. The things that I've tried, it was so funny. Like my wife was doing, she got certified in breath work last year. We were the last day of her certification. She was like, they had a thing where you could go and all the newly certified people would do breath work with you. And so I'm sitting there in this hut in the jungle of Costa Rica doing like shamanic breath work. And this like thing in my head was like the 18-year-old me came in and was like, Rob, what have you done with your life? And you're just like, yeah, it's weird. The depths of things that we're trying now to just keep trying and finding things that work effectively. Like, yeah, it's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some people need to have that out of body experience to really shake themselves out of everyday, what becomes a routine, what becomes a drill almost. My approach is more gentle. I don't feel like you have to feel like you're going to die in order to have an epiphany and to realize that the world is not as it seems. There's a lot of more gentler ways to get to the same outcome. And I think that people need to be aware of that. And also, as with anything, you have to be careful, and you have to really trust the practitioner and the person you're entrusting your mind to, because some people are amazing and do amazing work, and some people don't. And I think the most important piece that you always have to be aware of is the reintegration. Having an experience is one thing, but then how do you reintegrate back into your body, into your mind, into your world, having had that experience? I've worked with a couple of people who've gone and done ayahuasca ceremonies and came back completely fragmented because they didn't have that support of reintegration. And so I would just caution people to really trust the source you're going with and check in if that is the right experience for you. Just because your friends did it and they thought it was amazing doesn't necessarily mean that that is what your mind and your body needs in order to have that transformation.
Totally. Yeah, you're bringing up a lot of things here, right? Especially in that space right now. There's a lot of media around that space. And so a lot of folks have decided to get into that space that may not have specific training or skills, right? And so that's a big thing. Just folks be aware, right? And exactly what you're bringing up, Vera, is both before the experience and after the experience are incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
And so preparation is something that not always is done well, and being very deliberate about that, as well as the integration is also. And I have had, well, I've met a few folks who have absolutely done the same thing, where it hasn't been psychologically helpful for them to do those experiences. Also, I've met folks, and for myself, ketamine was wildly helpful in my journey of healing, but I was also doing therapy right afterwards. So, like, if you're in a space with someone who's trained and effective, it can be helpful. But you're right. Don't just jump in without knowledge on that stuff.
Absolutely. And also have an outcome in mind. What are you trying to accomplish? And is this the only way to achieve it? And is it the fastest way to achieve it? Or perhaps sometimes it's not the fastest, but is it the most effective way for you?
Yeah. It's helpful, right? It can be very helpful. It can also not be helpful. It's just like any modality, right? And I think
Absolutely.
that's the biggest thing is like, and what you mentioned, Vera, is like, who are you entrusting your work with is super, even in the coaching space, right? Is like certifications are, there's a wide range of them. And ultimately, even in therapy, right? Like there are great therapists and there are really bad therapists. It's like any profession. And so it's really finding who resonates with you, who you trust, and that's really going to be the most helpful part of all of this.
Absolutely. And I think what you've mentioned about resonating, I think that's the most important. It's the key thing. I don't work with a lot of clients, but I would say 90% of them, we have a conversation, we have an interaction. There's something that they're intrigued about. And then we get a little bit into the work, and there's something within them that calls out for us to work together. It's kind of an intuitive knowing almost. And majority of them say, I never thought I'd be doing this work. I never thought this is where we're going to end up going. But when they come out of it, is their relationships are completely transformed. Some of my clients were non-speaking terms with relatives for decades, and they're able to reconcile. Some of them had failed marriages and were very traumatized by the whole experience and were swearing they would never get married again, and they're now in happy marriages. People were having problems with their children. Now they're on the same page. They have a very collaborative relationship instead of the parent trying to control and dominate the child. And so this inner work, what people are not aware of is that it's not just what's happening. We're not just working through a one-on-one relationship. We're working through all of the relationships with all of the humans in your life. And if we can get you to a point where you drop some of the anger, some of the anxiety, some of the in some cases, it might feel like well-deserved animosity. But anytime you're holding on to those heavy negative emotions, it's like drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. That's not going to happen, right? You're only hurting yourself. So if you can free yourself from those bonds, from those obligations, from that self-torture, and that's what it is. You're not hurting anybody else by being angry at them. You're hurting yourself. Then you're feeling lighter. You're showing up in a very different way. You're having different relationships. And then what happens? The opportunities come, the businesses, the investments, the partners. And these relationships and these opportunities come from an energy of alignment. You're not pushing, you're not struggling, you're not fighting. It's all working. It's all easy. It's all flowing. And creating wealth, creating abundance, creating legacy, creating a family legacy from that space is very different than from a space of, I want to control every single person in my will. Because that's never going to happen. So dropping into what makes you aligned first realigns all of the other relationships and all of the other opportunities in your life and makes you a happy human.
It's that simple and that hard, right?
It's only as hard as your mind will make it.
Vera, the last question I got to ask you, right, is with all the chaos that's happening in the world right now, how can people capitalize on it?
Well, when anytime when there is change, there's always opportunities. And if you're looking at everything from a perspective and a lens of the world is falling apart, you will see validation of that. If you look at the world from a lens of, I'm seeing new things happening, I'm seeing shifts, I'm seeing doors closing, but also opening up, then you will perceive things in a very different way, and you will start seeing opportunities where you haven't seen them before. So the best way to capitalize on what's happening externally is to fine-tune what you are doing and who you are internally, and become very clear about what is it that you desire. And is it creating a bigger business? Is it doing something completely different? Is it exploring the world? Is it being the best philanthropist? Again, not for others, but for yourself. What really makes you feel alive? And then putting your energy, putting your capital, putting your attention and time behind that. And from a small seed that you plant, you will have a forest of trees and, a decade, 2 decades, maybe your lifetime, maybe it will go beyond your lifetime. But it all comes from that one moment of clarity.
Amazing. Folks out there, Vera Anderson, globalelementsconsulting.com. I've dropped her website and her LinkedIn in the podcast notes, so you can find her there. Vera, if folks want to connect with you, is there anywhere else you want them to find you?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way, and that's Vera Anderson Legacy. You can find me there, say hello, connect, and yeah.
Amazing. Everyone out there, thank you so much for listening. Vera, thanks for joining us today. It was awesome.
Absolutely. Pleasure being here. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, everyone. Make it happen. Get that inner clarity, and then we'll see you all next week.